Let's pretend that I am doing one of the things that I love to do, and that is speak to groups of women. If all of us were in a room together, and if I said, raise your hand if you were told by a parent to stand up straight when you were growing up, how many of you would raise your hand? My guess is probably quite a few of you. I would definitely be raising my hand with you. And then I would probably say something like, raise your hand if you have told your child to stand up straight. And I would be doing the same thing. There's just something that is appealing about standing up straight. You look confident. It just kind of lengthens you out. Like it just presents well, if we want to call it that. I want to talk about posture today, and I want to reframe this from just looking nice, which, let's be honest, I want to stand up straight and look good as well, but changing that from the appearance to more about how our body functions and what is happening when we are hunched over. And it might be that I just kind of struck a nerve with you. I mean, it might be that you've got really bad childhood memories of someone saying, stand up straight, stand up straight. And if that's the case, I'm really sorry, but I want to address our posture today, not from an aesthetic standpoint, but from what is going on physiologically. So today we're going to talk about what is happening to our posture in midlife. And a lot of this is not our fault. We're going to talk about bone health and longevity as it relates to our posture. We'll talk some about kyphosis, which is that kind of the bump at the top of your spine, lower neck. So I'm going to explain that some. We'll talk about kind of the lowest barrier entry point on how to address your posture. I'll give you some specific strength training movements to help your posture, and also stretching, because there are some muscles that we need to stretch. We'll talk some about the foam roller. And then also I'm going to get into those posture correctors, those things that you put on. I've seen them on social media. If you're on social media, you probably are too. We'll talk about the weighted vest and how that impacts our posture. And then we'll finish out. So let's jump into today's common sense approach to our posture. First of all, what is happening and why are we all of a sudden finding ourselves hunched over in midlife? Some of this is because of our estrogen loss. I know it's I feel like I'm talking about this in every episode, but our estrogen loss affects our muscle mass. It affects our bone density. It affects our connective tissue or our fascia laxity. And this can all cause us just to kind of lean forward, especially when we couple it with modern life. So we are on our phones, we are on our screens, we are driving, we've got our head hunched forward, we often have our neck kind of protruding forward, and everything is just pulling us forward. We can't expect to stand up straight when we are living a life of being hunched over. This pattern actually has a name. It's called upper crossed syndrome. And so whenever I train and I'm showing somebody something, I always exaggerate. So I'm going to exaggerate if you're watching this on YouTube, but basically take your shoulders and roll them in and hunch your head forward. Now, if you're seeing me on video, this is totally exaggerated for most people, but we're not like that. But I know if I'm not careful about it, I will kind of lean forward, my shoulders cave in, and that's upper cross, which means that our shoulders and our pectorals are tightening up, pulling in. It's funny, I will see this often in young men who are just getting into strength training because they care a lot about their pectorals. Those are kind of beach muscles, right? They want their big biceps and their big pectorals, and they're not really doing a whole lot on their backs. So they're just pressing, which causes them to concave in. This upper crust syndrome is typically indicative of a very tight pectoral muscle. A tight upper trap. So that's going to be kind of like the T in the upper part of your back. And then also your hip flexors. Your hip flexors are down there by your hips, right under your hip bones. They're also known as the psoas. And so if those are tight, then it's just kind of pulling everything in. It's also indicative of weak. So we can have tight muscles that are strong and tight muscles that are weak. Your tight muscles that are strong might be, like in the case of young men, those are going to be your pectorals. They're very strong, but they're very tight. You can also have very weak muscles as well. So those are going to be more like your mid to lower traps, your rhomboids, which is kind of like that mid back region between your shoulder blades and your spine, your deep neck flexors, and then also your glutes, which is your rear. And please hear me when I say if your muscles are weak or if it's tight, it's not because I don't think that you're not working them. It's just because it's hard to work all of our muscles. And it might be that we are not working some of our muscles as much as they want attention. This is not laziness. This is not saying you're not working hard. It's just kind of the predictable pattern that happens when we are living this modern lifestyle. As this relates to bone health and longevity, what happens is we take our head forward, we take our neck forward, so that will shift your center of gravity forward. That can impair your balance because now all of a sudden we're not upright, we're leaning forward. That can often exacerbate those tight hip flexors and be a precursor to what's called like that senior shuffle, where you're kind of taking smaller steps, maybe not doing full extensions, but I think you've probably seen this, like just shorter steps, just shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Well, that's because hip flexors are tight. And that's not the only reason, but that is one thing that is going on with that. But when we have impaired balance, when we start, having the beginning signs of that senior shuffle, even if you're not doing that, that can increase our fall risk. And we don't want to be falling. We all know this. If you are able to stand and your spine looks fine and you don't have that kyphosis, and even if you do, there's things that you can do to work around it, but this is our window to be proactive. This is the time to focus on the muscles, to straighten ourselves up and to support ourselves before it really becomes structural and it's very difficult to fully stand up. And impacts from bone issues like osteoporosis totally sets in. So if you've been diagnosed with osteopenia or osteoporosis, this episode does have some specific guidance for you. So make sure that you stay with me. I've mentioned kyphosis some, and I want to take just a minute with that. That is also called a dowager's hump, but it's basically like this little pocket that's at the very top of your spine. I have a friend actually one time mistake it for like a little fat pocket. She said, I thought it was just fat. No, it's actually just a structural thing that's going on inside your body. You can't self-diagnose this. You actually need an x-ray. So work with a medical provider to provide you that. But if you are starting to get visible rounding or a hump in that upper back, or if your chin is noticeably forward all the time, and so you're just pulling that head forward, which again, very easy to do, if we're on our computer or something all day, that is another sign that it may be. If you are having a hard time standing up straight, that might be a sign that you possibly have that kyphosis. Or if it's just that you're noticing that you never feel like you're quite upright, that might be a sign of it. Again, I am not here to diagnose. Please see a medical provider if you suspect that, because it's good to know. Now, there's two different kinds of kyphosis. One of them is postural. And so that is just from our habits, from our muscle imbalances, and that's going to be really responsive to exercise. Another thing is a structural kyphosis. So that is going to be your vertebra changing. Maybe if you've had a fracture, that is something that I really want you to talk to a medical provider about that, because it's always a good idea to get a medical professional with their eyes and hands on you before you go forward. Let's talk some with regard to posture about like what's the easiest thing, what's the lowest barrier thing. One of the things that I love doing when I have my one-on-one coaching sessions is to give just a really simple thing to do. And so here's my really simple thing to do for you is whenever you are standing, take your shoulder blades and see if you can slide them down your spine, slide them down your back. And that's just going to pull everything back, and that's going to engage your spine to help you stand upright. You would be shocked at how relaxed, once you start thinking about it, how relaxed your muscles are when you're just standing there. But if you just pull your shoulder blades down, then all of a sudden it's just going to upright you. And so that is just a really simple thing that you can do. I'm a big fan of James Clear and Atomic Habits, his book, and habit stacking. So think about like, when can you do that? Is that something that you can do when you are driving, which Often, if you're in the car for 30 minutes, if you're commuting or something like that, that might be kind of a long time to do. But is that something you can do every time you sit down at your desk? Before you put your hands on the keyboard, can you just slide your shoulder blades down? Are you on the phone a lot? Do you have a job that requires you to be like talking on the phone a lot? Maybe every time you pick up the phone to talk, even if you've got your AirPods in or something, you're sliding those down. So think about how you can associate sliding your shoulder blades down your back with something else. And that's that concept of habit stacking. This is not about perfection. This is not about doing something all the time. It's just about noticing. And honestly, noticing is half the battle. As a personal trainer, of course, I'm going to want to give you some movements to do to strengthen your back and to strengthen the muscles that will help support your posture. I'll go through these relatively quickly, but if there is one word that I can give you to remember, it is this: pull. Okay, pull weight, pull resistance toward you. This is one reason why I love resistance bands so much, because they're cheap, they are accessible, and anyone can use them as long as you have like a door with a hinge. But pulling things, so you can pull down, you can pull towards your face, you can pull up, you can pull apart. Like all of these are going to be working your mid trapezius, your lower trapezius, your rhomboids. If you don't have anything to pull, then the thing I would recommend most is good on the floor in the prone position. Prone is going to be face down, so your belly's on the floor, and you can take your arms out in a Y position and lift your chest up off the ground with your hands. Keep your feet on the ground. I don't want you overextending your back, but lift up in a Y position. You can lift up in a T position. You can take your arms bent and you can lift your bent arms up off the ground. Try and keep your hands and your elbows equidistant from the ground. It's real common to have either the hands lead or the elbows lead. So equidistant is really going to be the most impactful. But those are all great exercises to strengthen those spines if you don't have access to something to pull. Another thing you do is just chin tuck. So, again, we're used to standing like, kind of hunched over. Just tuck, just pull your chin back so that your ears are right over your shoulders. And that feels weird at the very beginning. I'm going to be really honest. I'm not saying like give yourself a double chin. I'm just saying pull your ears and your chin back. The other thing to work on is your erector spinae, which those are the long muscles that go down your spine. Exercises like a bird dog, that's when you're on your hands and knees and you're lifting up opposite hands, opposite leg, and then doing the other side. That can be really helpful. Don't forget about your glutes. We want to have strong glutes, believe it or not. That does impact our posture. So you can do things like glute bridges, you can do hip hinges. And then also doing some core work in a neutral spine. That's going to be like your planks, your dead bugs. Dead bug is the opposite of a bird dog. So you're laying on your back, and this is a brain exercise too if it's new to you, but your hands are reaching up toward the ceiling. Your knees are in a 90-degree angle. So think about what you look like when you are on your hands and knees, and then flip it upside down. So that's what you look like. And then you drop one arm back and the other leg extends. It's a brain teaser when you're not used to it. And then also something called Pallof press, which is where you get on your knees and you have some resistance about waist level and you're pressing out and in. Those are all great core exercises that will keep you in a neutral spine, because I want to jump ahead to a note of if you have osteopenia or osteoporosis. All of what I just said is good. You want to avoid spinal flexion. So that's like crunches, sit-ups, toe touches, hugging your knees to your chest. Anything that is flexing your spine is not something that is recommended for you if you have osteopenia or osteoporosis. So keep your core in a neutral position, and strengthening your core will help you with your posture, believe it or not. We talk some about tight muscles or overactive muscles like those pecs, like we talked about, doing any kind of stretch on your pectorals will help open up. I mean, just think about it. Take your arms, open them up wide, and what does that do? That pulls you up. It is nearly impossible to stretch your pectorals with opening your arms without standing up straight and elongating your spine. So you can do that just in the air. You can go up to a door frame. Anything that will open up your chest is really helpful to that. Stretching out your hip flexors, also very helpful for that. Just take one foot back behind and tuck your hips and squeeze that same glute. So if my left leg is back, then I'm tucking my hips to really strengthen that, or to lengthen that hip flexor, and then squeeze your back left glute. And you should feel that stretch in that psoas, in that hip flexor. So those are things that you can do to lengthen and to stretch out. So again, we're kind of thinking about the front. We want to lengthen and we want to strengthen the back. A foam roller can be helpful in situations like this, especially what's called the thoracic extension. So I would say start gentle on this, just because you want to make sure that your body's responding gently to your gentle movement. So get on your foam roller, put it kind of behind your shoulder blades, and you're lying on the ground with your knees bent, and just gently extend your head back and then come back into a neutral position. What this is doing is it is giving your spine an extension to counteract the flexion. So that can help with lengthening, with kind of opening things up. But the catch is you've got to pair that with the strengthening. Just doing that is not going to do a lot if you're not also strengthening those muscles. So if you want something really simple to do, then do that thoracic extension and then move the foam roller away, get on your belly and do some of those Ys, those Ts, those any kind of extensions. Again, keep your feet on the floor and just lift your chest up. So the foam roller can be a tool, but it's not going to fix any kind of postural issues unless you are strengthening your muscles as well. I do want to make sure that I say if you have severe osteoporosis or if you have spinal fractures, avoid spinal rolling altogether. If you have significant kyphosis, just talk to a doctor and see if they are comfortable with you doing that with your body. If you have, like, this is the disclaimer section. If you have acute disc herniation, acute back injury, not the time to do that. Probably not a good idea. Herniated disc, same thing. Like, be smart. You're smart. You can figure this out. If you're not sure, then check with your medical provider before you do any of those extensions on the foam roller. But in general, it is safe to do as long as you don't have any of those what's called contraindications. Now let's talk about vests and let's talk about those posture correctors. Okay, I don't have a problem with vests. I just did a common sense episode on weighted vests. But they are not the answer to everything. I was just talking with a client today about weighted vests, and I said, there are some influencers and some health professionals out there who are touting them, and I feel like their net is cast really wide, and maybe not everybody understands what the benefit of these weighted vests are. Weighted vests are going to help with your hip bone density. It's not going to help with your spinal density, and it's not even necessarily going to help with the muscles surrounding your spine. You need the resistance to be pulling to strengthen those muscles. Likewise, those posture correctors, now they may be helpful in encouraging you to open up and to not have that upper cross syndrome. So I will give them that. However, if you are not also doing the back strengthening work, then it's just a Band-Aid. And then it's just making you stand up straight, and you're not strengthening the muscles that are going to be helping you stand up straight when you don't have that thing on. So if you want to use it, go for it. I'm not sold. I'm not ever purchasing one. I don't think they're worth the money. I'd rather see you pull. If nothing else, get a loop, and I've got all kinds of videos on YouTube about this. Get a loop and just pull back. You can get 5 loops for like $8 on Amazon, and I'll put some links in the show notes, but like just pull. Like, Just pull, y'all. I don't know what else to say. Strengthen your back to help your posture. Okay, I'm getting a little preachy here, but the bottom line with these posture correctors in particular is it can help create an awareness, but it's not going to be the magic wand. There is no magic wand. You've got to strengthen those muscles. Likewise, the vests are great for the additional weight for your hip bones, your lumbopelvic hip complex. It's not going to do anything for your spine, for the actual bone density around your spine. And it's really not going to give a lot of support in terms of your back musculature. Instead, say it with me, we're going to pull. Okay. All right. To wrap it all up, if you notice that your posture is getting worse throughout midlife, you're not alone. There are real reasons for this. And we do want to stand up straight, but not because it's something that our parent told us because we want to look good. I mean, I want to look good too, but it's because we want to protect ourselves from falls. We want to protect our bone health, and we want to be mobile for as long as possible. And really, this can begin with just being aware of how you're standing. Like I said, I find myself hunched over often as well, but I have the awareness, and so I'll just kind of right myself up. Is it all the time? No, but it's better than it was, and I do believe that that has helped my posture in general. And finally, if you have osteoporosis, if you have osteopenia, if you suspect significant kyphosis, it's worth enlisting the help of a physician, and specifically a physical therapist. They can give you some specific movements, or a personal trainer like myself who has done continuing education on osteoporosis, osteopenia, bone health, all of that kind of stuff. So I just want to remind you, just in case you have that childhood trauma of someone, stand up straight, put your shoulders back, blah, 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 blah. This is not a moral failing. All right. You've done nothing wrong. This has nothing to do with who you are as a person. It's information, and it is an invitation to do something about it so that you can feel better and move better for as long as God has you on this earth. Okay, that is all for today. Go out there and have a graced day.